Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we're covering Lightning and Telekinex. In the top left you'll see the set bonuses that I recommend. It's pretty much Old Gathering Storm. Going into our details, you'll see the stats that I run. I run High Alacrity, which is 6 Alacrity enhancements and or implant / earpiece. And then pretty much everything else is devoted to critical. I use the Mastery Stem also. Going into our talents, this is pretty standard for what I use. I run Elemental Convection 9 times out of 10. I pretty much don't touch the other tacticals as I don't like the way they play. And I also don't like how easy it is to negate Stormwatch, and I also don't like the fact that you have to use Force Speed for Aaron's Haste. Does not feel good, so I just don't run them. However, I will explain some of how they play. Number one thing I want to point out here basically is that you can take the damage reduction on natural preservation instead of surging speed, but also at the same time you can take the raid buff instead of the DR2. That's not bad. It pretty much takes suppression, though the shock damage is pretty nice and the movement speed is also pretty nice. And then pretty much all the options at the bottom for Chain Lightning, Halted Offense, for the CDR and natural preservation, they're all pretty good. Definitely recommend trying them out depending on which kind of playstyle you like. So for example, Elemental Convection, you have to take Volt Rush, otherwise you're kind of like not able to utilize the tactical. And as Stormwatch, you can definitely take Phase Walk, which is super nice. Same with Aaron's Haste. Going into a ring combo, you would Force Storm pre-fight to get a proc for Halted Offense or Chain Lightning. Go into Affliction, Lightning Flash into Crushing Darkness, and then you would pop all your off the global cooldown abilities with Thundering Blast, or not with, but into Thundering Blast. So you can pretty much do all this at the same time. You just have to make sure that you use all three of those before you channel Thundering Blast. Otherwise, you won't be able to actually use them while you're channeling. And then you would go into Halted Offense / Chain Lightning, and if you were doing Halted Offense instead, I would recommend using Force Speed, Polarity, and Recklessness on Halted Offense instead of Thundering Blast. Unless your target is a tank, then the internal damage of Thundering Blast would be better. Into Shock, and then you could probably Force Storm just to blow up the current. And if it's single target, you may not want to do that, but you totally can if you want the control of having the extra root on them. Into Volt Rush, into Chain Lightning once again. However, obviously, if you're running Halted Offense, you won't have the current, so you won't be able to add the extra root. So therefore, the Force Storm is not really applicable here. And if you're running Stormwatch and Aaron's Haste, Lightning Bolt plays a big part of your filler, but this is your main combo. So if you're playing Elemental Convection, you totally can use Volt Rush more than once in a row, as it will do more damage as you use it more than once in a row. Basically, try not to use it when it's not procced, because it can mess with your energy management, but overall, it's super relaxed on that. But I will explain the rotation a little bit better, like in game, but for the most part, this is what you need to take away. Force Storm can proc your Chain Lightning and Halted Offense. And also, at the same time, Thundering Blast is internal, and so is Affliction, but Affliction being internal doesn't really matter. Basically, the thing to take away is Thundering Blast is internal. And the reason why I say this is internal and elemental damage cannot be mitigated, so if you're attacking a tank, this is the ability that you want to prioritize of Gathering Storm. Also, Recklessness and Polarity if you have it. However, pretty much everything else except for Affliction and Thundering Blast is not internal, so it doesn't really serve much purpose. However, I'll show you some cool stuff in game. And the first thing I want to show you is, let me switch to Halted Offense so I can show you the damage. I've hit 100 Ks with this ability. It's pretty crazy. So we're just going to go into our normal opener, nothing crazy here. So we hit a 91k there. Currently I'm not using the critical relic, though I probably should be, for especially playing Lightning, which I would definitely recommend the critical relic for Lightning, without a doubt. Even without Polarity, it still hits pretty hard, but I'm just not critting, which is, RNG is RNG. Here, we hit a 76k without Polarity. or recklessness. That's pretty decent, I would say. Overall, it does make Elements of Action a little interesting. Obviously, it's still an AoE ability with Volt Rush, but also offense is not. So you can basically make it so you're just like shooting out really hard hitting abilities constantly at the target. It's pretty fun. Before it got nerfed, I played it a lot. I had 115k halted offenses on people. Like that was harder than Energy Burst. It was pretty crazy. So a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I never made a video on it, even though I had like at least like 10 plus games of it on stream. But now that it's nerfed, it's still pretty good. The nerf happened quite a while now ago. And then the other thing that I want to show you guys, where's my chain lightning? It usually goes. Sorry. Alright, so instead of doing like a rotation here, we'll just throw a chain lightning and you'll see this debuff. And if I pop it before Storm, it applies the root, as you saw there. Now here's another thing. If I have Affliction on the target, let's let it tick a little bit. When I use Chain Lightning, it's going to refresh the dot no matter what. So there we go. We have to refresh, we have to slow, and there was a mini root. Now we've got some time on this. Now what I'm going to do is use Force Storm. And when I use Force Storm, refreshes and applies a mini root. You only saw it for very little time because it was 0.5 second root. It's basically like Chain Lightning hitting all over again. So for example, I'll just do this, applies another thing. When we see it again in action, immediately turns into a root. This is pretty useful and also pretty nice as Affliction is internal and you're reticking Affliction here. This is also an AoE, so this is very strong single target control, but also group control. You can completely keep people rooted for a very long time and consistently with Elemental Convection and proper use of Chain Lightning and Force Storm. I definitely thought twice about making this video. I really didn't want to do it, but I think this should get fixed. I noticed a lot of Lightning Sorcerers not really capable of like figuring it out, and or have figured it out. They're just not playing Lightning to its, I guess, fullest extent. So it's not as obnoxious as it truly can be. This is extremely obnoxious. It should not reapply Chain Lightning at all, but it is. So definitely something to think about. It's almost like the Death Brand bug, where you can have 2 Death Brands of your own on one target. I actually managed to do that, and it's just because when it re-triggers, it's like completely broken. Other than that, there's not really anything crazy about this. Obviously, if you're doing the rotation, for example, you will run into an issue where you're basically hitting Lightning Bolt quite a bit if you're not running Volt Rush, and if you're running Volt Rush, it's a little bit different because you can kind of forgo a lot of that, which is pretty nice. There's nothing too crazy about this spec. It's really easy to play. You basically would forgo your Crushing Darkness with Volt Rush to basically do the normal rotation you would. You can also spam, so for example, you can spam your Volt Rush. So when I get a proc here, I can do this once, I can do this twice, and I can do a 3rd time. It's totally fine to do that. It will do more damage. The more uses back to back consecutively, that's the word I'm looking for. So that's totally viable if you really want to. I don't really do that, but sometimes I do if it's sort of like a really big AoE. And again, you know, using Force Storm on a single target is not terrible ideal. I know you see it and you're like, wow, that guy is stupid, but there's a reason they're doing it. Other than that, there's not really anything else I can add to Lightning. It's a very simple spec. It's always kind of been that way. I personally miss, you know, having Whirlwind and all of our old utility. That really nice. Pull DR, Dark Infusion. I miss that a lot. But having the instant cast Dark Heals is pretty cool. Unfortunately, Dark Heal doesn't really crit for like anything at all. That's actually a decent crit there, but for the most part, you could hit 28k all the way back in 5.0, so take it with a grain of salt. Anyways, if you guys talk something from this, if you guys have any questions about Lightning, feel free to ask, or if you have any questions about other classes, feel free to ask. I have a whole bunch of guides, I'll link into the description, so feel free to check that out.